Today, we're diving into the untold story of World War II parachute troopers. You know, in every war, there are those fighters who really shake things up, who change what it means to go to battle. During World War II, one breakthrough was the rise of paratroopers, soldiers trained to jump out of planes and land behind enemy lines, often outnumbered and surrounded, fighting with quick moves, surprise tactics, and guts. They weren't your typical troops. These guys were a whole new kind of soldier. Airborne infantry, ready to disrupt, destroy, and confuse the enemy before the main forces even got there. The World War II paratroopers were the front line, the spearhead. Their story is all about bravery, trying new things, innovation, and sacrificing for the greater good. It all kicked off in the years between the wars, when alliances shifted and technology started changing at a fast pace. By the 1930s, using aircraft to drop troops wasn't exactly a brand new idea, but it was definitely a bold move. Early on, militaries had toyed around with the concept, mostly dropping small groups of soldiers from slow planes. It wasn't until between the wars, especially after World War I, that this idea started to turn into real strategies that armies actually used. The Soviet Union was one of the first to get serious about it. In the early 1930s, the Red Army put on some pretty impressive exercises, dropping thousands of paratroopers from aircraft. Even though these weren't yet polished tricks of the trade, they showed how much potential there was. Military folks from Germany, the US, and other countries definitely took notice. Germany, under Hitler, was rearming and didn't hide their plans. They were breaking the Treaty of Versailles right in front of everyone. Speed was the key. Led by General Kurt Student, they formed the Fallschirmjäger, which were the world's first fully organized and operational paratrooper units. These troops weren't just jumping out of planes for show, they were trained to grab key targets quickly and hit hard with force. By 1939, when World War II kicked off, Germany had already become pretty good at organizing its airborne troops. The Fallschirmjäger, German paratroopers, were thrown into action early on and kept proving just how effective they could be. Their first big move was during the invasion of Norway and Denmark in April 1940, where they quickly took over airfields, giving the Luftwaffe the upper hand in the skies. But one of their most famous early strikes was at Eben-Emael, a heavily fortified Belgian fortress everyone thought was pretty much untouchable. In May 1940, German glider soldiers silently landed right on top of the fortress and used shaped charges to blow through its defenses. In just a few hours, the fortress was finished. It was a real psychological win, showing Germany's cleverness and daring in a dramatic way. But things got really intense for the German paratroopers in 1941 during the invasion of Crete, what was called Operation Mercury. Thousands of Fallschirmjäger jumped into the island, taking airfields and fighting fiercely for control of cities. The toll was huge. More than 4,000 German troops lost their lives. Even though they won, Hitler was pretty shocked by how many soldiers were killed and decided not to okay any more large-scale airborne attacks. After that, German paratroopers mostly became elite ground troops rather than big assault forces. Germany's early success with airborne troops really caught people's attention. The British and Americans saw just how powerful paratrooper units could be. For Britain, the wake-up call came after France fell. Winston Churchill, impressed by what the Germans were doing with airborne tactics, decided Britain needed its own paratroopers. That led to the creation of the 1st Parachute Brigade and, later on, the 1st and 6th Airborne Divisions. Meanwhile, in the US, they started from scratch with airborne forces. Training kicked off in full swing at Fort Benning in Georgia. By 1942, they had the 82nd Airborne Division ready to go. These weren't just regular soldiers. They were volunteers, carefully chosen, and put through some of the hardest training the military had seen. The kind of training these guys went through was intense, both physically and mentally. They had to learn to be independent, aggressive, and flexible. They trained to jump in the dark, land amid chaos, fight alone when isolated, and step up as leaders when no one else was around. They were told they were the best of the best, and they believed it. The first real challenge for American paratroopers hit during Operation Husky, the invasion of Sicily in July 1943. It was a tough introduction filled with chaos and bloodshed. Poor navigation, friendly fire incidents, and miscommunications caused the soldiers to get scattered all over the countryside. Some planes were even shot down by Allied ships that mistook them for enemy fighters. Despite the chaos, these paratroopers still managed to do some serious damage, sabotaging enemy lines, slowing down reinforcements, and stirring up trouble for the Germans and Italians. The main takeaway? Airborne missions were super risky, but when they worked, they could be seriously effective. Later that year and into 1944, more paratroopers were dropped into Italy, facing stiff resistance from well-entrenched German troops. It was intense and expensive, no doubt, but each operation helped improve tactics and built a tough, experienced group of veteran paratroopers. On the night of June 5, 1944, as the biggest seaborne invasion in history was about to happen off the coast of Normandy, thousands of Allied paratroopers took off in C-47 transport planes and gliders. Their goal was straightforward: jump behind enemy lines, hold important terrain, destroy bridges and artillery, and stop German reinforcements from reaching the beaches. The 101st and 82nd Airborne Divisions, along with the British 6th Airborne Division, jumped into a night full of chaos and confusion. Many missed their drop zones. Some were dropped miles away from where they were supposed to land. Equipment was lost, and some units even landed in flooded fields and drowned because of the weight of their gear. But despite all the chaos, the mission was a success. Small groups of paratroopers banded together and managed to complete key objectives. The taking of Sainte-Mère-Église, the destruction of bridges over the River Aisne, and the defense of Pegasus Bridge became legendary moments that showed the airborne operation was worth it. Back in September 1944, the Allies pulled off what was probably one of their most daring airborne missions, Operation Market Garden. They aimed high, dropping over 35,000 airborne soldiers into the Netherlands, grabbing a bunch of key bridges and opening up a route into Germany's industrial core. It was a bold plan, no doubt, but things didn't go perfectly. While many American and British paratroopers managed to take their targets, things fell apart at Arnhem Bridge, where the British 1st Airborne held out for days but were eventually overwhelmed. That's where the phrase, "a bridge too far," comes from. Even though Market Garden wasn't a full success, it showed just how tough and resilient airborne troops could be. Their bravery and discipline in the face of crazy odds only made them even more legendary. Back in December 1944, Hitler pulled off a surprise attack in the Ardennes, a last-ditch effort to split the Allied forces and capture the port of Antwerp. Right in the way of this German push was the town of Bastogne, which was fiercely defended by the 101st Airborne Division. Surrounded, freezing, and running low on supplies, the 101st refused to back down. When the Germans demanded they surrender, General Anthony McAuliffe famously shot back with just one word: nuts. Their stubborn stand helped turn the tide during the Battle of the Bulge, and by the time reinforcements showed up, the 101st had definitely made its mark in military history. By the end of World War II, paratroopers had really proven how important they were. They weren't just your average shock troops. They were a special kind of force that could lead invasions, hold important points, and fight through some of the toughest conditions out there. Their influence carried on through all the airborne units that came after. From Vietnam to Afghanistan, the spirit of the paratrooper, a soldier who jumps into the unknown, takes charge, and fights with incredible bravery, is still a big part of modern warfare. There are monuments around the world honoring them. Every year, veterans gather in Normandy, walking once again on the fields where they landed so many years ago, carrying stories of brothers they lost and battles they fought and won. During World War II, the paratroopers really stood out. They took leaps into the unknown, into enemy lands, and into history books. Whether it was dropping over France, storming bridges in the Netherlands, or fighting through the dense forests of the Ardennes, they did so with a clear goal and incredible courage. They were the first to jump out of the planes, the first to engage in combat, and often the last ones to leave the battlefield. If you found this story as incredible as we did, hit that like button, subscribe for more aviation history, and drop a comment below.